very magnificent day to you. Welcome to Lead with Intentions, where every single week at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, I, your host, Ambereen Hameed, show up here ready to serve you. I truly am honored to cross paths with you and to be here realizing, recognizing that I appreciate you for giving me the highest commodity in the world, and that is your time. All right, let's get rocking and rolling. Welcome to Spanglish World Network and Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app on your respective app stores, iOS, Android, the Fire Sticks, the Rokus, the 2016 TVs on forward as you're downloading this app for us. Go ahead and leave us a review, rate us, let us know what we're doing well and how we can better serve you, because it's through this that we can actually amplify and impact more people. As always, this app is completely free, yours to use. So make sure you get those Chromecasts, those Fire Sticks, those Rokus, and those TVs locked and loaded, hooked up, so that way you can have a great experience here with us. All right, for those of you who know me, every single week, my intention is to come here and actually introduce you to people who are very rare gems. These people are individuals who are living impactful lives and really truly want to make the world a better place. A lot of times, these people are people I cross paths with, and other times they're kind of in my path. So today, I have the most beautiful guest here for you. This woman, she is something magical. Tazeen Hameed is somebody who is truly a remarkable human being. And what makes her remarkable is that she's a Muslim American who is happily married for 12 years with three beautiful, healthy, and brilliant children. And it is my honor to call her my younger sister. She has been an influence for me and my rock in the most difficult times you guys cannot imagine. This girl showed up in ways I did not even I did not even pray for, to be honest with you. Tazeen is an immigrant who moved to America without knowing any English and now holds a master's degree in the field of mathematics. Nerd! With a master's in curriculum instruction. She's somebody who I've seen grow, bloom, blossom into a force of reflection as she changes often to realize how she shows up as her best self. The greatest thing about Tazeen is she is somebody who wears a strong armor to protect herself from the actions of other people and the negativity that may impact her. And without further ado, please welcome to this show my favorite sister, Tazeen Hameed.
Hello, everybody.
How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good. It's different to be on air, but I'm excited.
There you are. All right. All right. So then, as you're excited, come on, because for the audience that's watching, the people who are tuned in, which I'm so very grateful for, tell us something about you. Who are you?
Who am I? All right. I feel like I am just someone that is trying to walk through the different paths of life, reflecting and changing. I have watched this show with amazing people on air, and I honestly don't find myself in the same boat as them. I am just someone that has dealt with a lot of different experiences in life and have really reflected on what do I want to take away from it and how do I want to live my life. And for that reason, I'm someone that's doesn't just mold and doesn't follow. I will question everything and question how it affects me. And if I feel like it'll make me happy and it'll be good for me, I'll follow it. If I don't, then I stop and I don't answer to anyone for it.
Right there, that last one. I want to dive in there. I don't answer to anyone for it. Now, that is a lot of armor that you're wearing. How did you get there?
Uh, Life. It's it's tough at times. I think that growing up, I'm the third of four sisters. I'm bringing the second, I'm third. And as a middle person, I feel like you're always kind of fighting for that attention. And so you feel like, oh, you have to speak up more. You have to be louder. You have to be, I was the crazy one in the family. You have to be that because that's how I want to show up. And I think you just realize like you want to make your mark somewhere, but oh boy, have I changed. Oh my goodness. I mean, I think that stopping and reflecting and figuring out like perspective has grown, it has allowed me to have this armor. I think that before I came with the armor of having a very loud tongue, that was my armor.
I
And
can adjust.
I've grown up and know that. And now I come with the armor of resilience. So,
Mm, that's brilliant because what I just recently heard is if there's one skill that will supersede and make you the human you were meant to be, it's resilience.
wow.
So I am so glad. Can you share something with us on how you live intentionally or what it means to be, to lead with intentions?
Sure. I think that just from the beginning, from a cultural perspective, I think that growing up in a Pakistani household where my parents were very strict, my mom was very particular on how she wanted certain things to be. You know, my dad came here as an immigrant with four girls, which is already a challenge, trying to make sure to keep us on the right path and we're not doing anything wrong. So unfortunately, his answer to everything was no, no, no. There were these regular things that you were supposed to follow as Pakistani girls, and I questioned it.
Mm,
Like my dad would be like, "Oh, you need to learn how to cook," and I'm like, "Why? Why can't the guy cook?" Or like, "Oh, you don't know how to make bread. How are you gonna get married?" And I mean, these are things my dad used to say to me, and I used to be like questioning it throughout the way. And as you're dependent and you're questioning it, you're not changing, you're questioning it for your own good, but you're saying yes and no to you're just saying yes to your parents and you're following along. But I think when I turned 22, I was, in a past relationship that was not good. And I think in that moment, I really had to stop and be like, what is the meaning of life? And I think when you're in a difficult spot, you really get faced with like what you want to get out of it. And the little things that you think are important in life are really don't really mean anything.
mm.
And so I think that from that point on, I learned to live my life how I wanted and learn to say no when I didn't feel like something was comfortable or made sense with me.
22 is very
Yeah,
young,
I
very
know.
young. So could you dive in, and be as vulnerable as you want to be as protective as you want to be? What was it that in that moment when you said, it was a relationship and I had to kind of see and put a different perspective on life? What about that made you become who you are today?
Um, I think that when you're in a bad relationship, you learn to see like what your role is. And unfortunately, I was in a place where it was not a healthy marriage. I was in an abusive relationship, and it it put me in a very corner in life. And I didn't have my loved ones around me. I literally just turned to Allah for help. And in that moment, I remember sitting and praying and realizing that like that my actions are going to affect my life only, and the only way I can find guidance is turning spiritually. And
Mm,
there are so many times where I just feel like the only one I have beside me is my God. And I just kind of followed that path and prayed on it. And from the time I was 22, I realized that like, no, I needed to be a better version of me. I need to live intentionally. I needed to become better for myself so that I can be better for those around me. And that was breaking all stigmas, breaking the cultural barriers, breaking things that you're supposed to do that you should do but you don't want to do. And I think from that point, I just kind of led with like, what would God want me to do? What is the right thing I would want to do that's comfortable for me? And 22 seems like a really young age now to look back at it. I do think that I was more mature than most people at 22, and and when you're in a life, when you're in a difficult situation in life, you unfortunately have to grow up quickly. So I did, and I've kind of just held on to that since 22. I'm not 22 anymore. I know Breen's forever
mm.
21,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I don't think my audience here knows. So thank you for continuing to
oh,
listen.
yeah,
I
you're
hope
welcome.
she's pouring in goodness. You want to talk to them about my 22 story?
Well, she believes that she's always 20. Well, she's forever 21 because 21 was like her prime year where she felt like she was the best version of herself, that she felt good about herself, that she was in a place where she was content with herself in life. And so it's been a while since she's been 21 for those that are watching.
Hey, most people still think I'm 21, so I will take it. I actually want to kind of reflect on something that you mentioned, and it's become a theme already, within just about 10 minutes into the show. You mentioned that when you guys moved here from Pakistan, when we moved here from Pakistan, um, your dad was in a totally new different place, and the answer naturally for him was no, 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 no to everything.
Yeah.
And then you talked a little bit about culturally, you start to question things. And right now, again, you mentioned breaking the cultural norms. As a Pakistani woman, what are some cultural norms that you felt you had to break to really define Tazeen and who she's becoming?
I think that growing up, speaking my mind was a very no-no in cultural Pakistani culture. I mean, I naturally have a loud voice. I mean, I take pride in it because I try to use it well now than I did before when I was growing up. But I remember my grandpa telling me, always telling me, like, girls' voices should be lower and they should be not so loud and should just stay within the house, which I understand to some perspective now, but it was very like, oh, you don't say anything because you're a girl, or you don't voice your opinion even if adults are wrong because you're a girl. And in our house, we didn't have any brothers, and the only man voice was my dad's, and my dad didn't really speak up. That was not his nature, and so it was like you would just kind of be submissive. That was one cultural norm I was not okay with. I think going into, like, I started to travel after my past kind of ended, my experience with or I should say my ex marriage was done. I started to travel, and you're not supposed to travel alone when you're a girl because you need a guy to be with you. And I was like, well, I know I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to fall into anything dumb. And you should be able to trust me and I trust myself to do this. I think
Mm-hmm.
when it got into like marriage, it was the thing of like, oh, the wife should be doing all of the labor, and like, she should be, serving her husband on a plate of food, and he should just like eat it and leave his plate on the table. And I was like, no. So I remember, like, there's so many times my parents would be like looking at me that, oh no, that's so sad that your husband did that for you because he's doing a chore. Or my dad being like, oh, he's cooking, that's so sad. Like, why aren't you cooking for him? Are you making him happy? And I think just throughout, I just fought it. Like, no, that's not the way that a healthy marriage is. Like, it has to be a mutual thing, and you're each other's companions, right? Companions doesn't mean like one person takes on the entire load and the other one doesn't. And then as becoming parents, like, there's things that you should do. You should put them in certain clothes. You should have them dressed a certain way. You should have them like wash them and doing this XYZ every single day. And in the beginning, I was kind of following it, and I got so exhausted, and I just kind of paused, and I'm like, no, that's not making me happy. It doesn't make any sense. It's not making my kids happy. I'm not doing it just because I'm supposed to be doing it. So I think, and I know this is going to be a thing, ongoing journey for me, for probably the rest of my life. But I stuck with it. I don't feel like I never follow the norm. You know, I won't do
Hmm.
that. I'll stand for myself.
Yeah, I can be here as a witness. That's very true statement. I don't follow the norms. I do me. And that's something that I think, on the contrary, I've never done in my life.
Mhm.
So the zine talks about, being the middle child. So there are four of us. And I'm second, she's third. We're the middle people, right? We're like the people who are like, give me attention.
We're
I
like
need to.
the meat of the burger, okay? We're like the it.
We are the it, but we are not focused upon as it, right? So I took the other route, where the zine became loud and rambunctious and very like straightforward. And, like you said, I used my tone, to speak. I became quite the contrary,
Yeah.
the opposite, you know? And I think it's like when you said it's a healthy marriage, you know, take us and all the people who are watching, who I'm super, super, super honored for, take us down that path. Like, what is something that you can share about your family so that we can get to know your family dynamics a little bit better, Tazeen?
Sure. My journey with my husband started about 12 and a half years ago. My husband is definitely an exception to the rule. A regular traditional Pakistani guy is very like, I'm the breadwinner and I bring in the money and that's all I do, and you do the rest of it, right? You raise the kids, you take care of the kitchen, you do the cooking, the cleaning, the whole thing. And you might work if you want to. Or if you have, if I feel like you should, right? That's the other
Mm,
traditional thing. And I think when I got married to my husband, Usman, thankfully, my in laws have done an amazing job of not raising him with those traditional norms. And when I married him, I remember something simple like ironing, right? Like the girl does the
mm,
ironing. And we had to get ready for like parties, and the girls always take longer to get ready. And here I was like, my husband's like, oh, I'll iron your clothes. And at first I was like, what? Like, you're a guy. You can iron, you know? But he did it, and I was like, okay, this makes sense, right? Like we have to get somewhere on time. If he's ready and he irons my clothes, that makes so much more sense than me us being late. And that just became like our thing. Like, what are we gonna do together to like make the most out of it?
mm,
Um, so now like we have a very healthy relationship in the sense that like there's no like you do this and I do that. There's wherever we need to help each other out, we contribute. When we had kids, we chose that the life I wanted to be is a part-time professor and a full-time mom. And so I
mm.
I love that, and that's the dimension. I mean, that's the life, that's the family dimension, the dynamics that we want to keep. And so my husband is the main breadwinner, but all the other stuff around the house, he's contributing. In terms of raising the kids, there's a very big norm of like, oh, the mom does everything and she takes them to the bathroom and she feeds them and all that stuff. And I just remember my grandma being like, you should be ashamed of yourself that your husband is changing your daughter's diaper. And I'm like, why? That's his daughter. And I think all those are like, so a lot of people recognize it. And that's why I was saying reflection and change is like my motto, because you might reflect on it, but it takes another pizzazz to actually change it and be like, no, I don't want to adopt that just because that's all I know, because it doesn't make me happy. It doesn't make me like make the most of my role in this relationship or whatever role I'm taking on. And I think that for us throughout our 12 years of marriage and even with our kids, when you come to our home, it's a very different feel than the home I grew up in, because there aren't any of those like you should be doing this or you should be doing
So I'm huge on energy, and I
that.
think it's like something that most of us don't realize how much it impacts ourselves. You just mentioned that the home that you grew up in versus the home that you now reside in, which is your home. What's the shift in that energy, and how do you maintain that?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I am always struggling between nature and nurture. Naturally, coming from our household, it was louder. It was like there's these ABC things you do when you come home from school, from work or school or whatever. You follow this strictly within the 1 hour, and the idea of like, well, kids, you tell them what to do. You don't really ask them what they want to do. You don't give them like an open window to explain, because I am the mom and I will explain on your behalf, you know, those type of things. And I think that growing up, I felt that because one, I was, raised culturally in the sense that I didn't really have a say to speak my mind. And I think the other thing was like, well, yeah, that's great that you're saying that, but as long as you're staying within the boundaries that I have formed for you, I'm good with that. And
Mm,
I think that over time that became a more of a negative connotation, and it became very like the house where I became very, very anxious. It was always like this discipline idea, which I'm very big on discipline, but I think there has to be a balance. And there's the idea of like, just saying no because in their minds it's a no, but not really hearing the other person out. And I think that when I consciously made our home the way it is now, there is room for error. There is room to be like, okay, why are you acting this way? Or yes, I do expect you to do A, B, and C, but how do you feel about it? Or is there something else you want to do? Or maybe today is not a good day for you, and you tell me what's bothering you that we can talk about it. I think the communication is big, and because of that, there's no expectation that you have to have coming into the home. It's just to be. And however you are, I'll accept it.
All right. So your wrap ups are becoming extremely impossible, like impossible to the Trump here. You said something that's profound. I'm not sure if you recognized it. And for those of you who are listening, that lesson that she's just teaching all of us, why I said she's a wise, influential person, is be, and I'll accept you as you are. How did that happen? Because most of us are not trying to be. I often will quote Deepak Chopra, who says, as when did we go from human beings to human doings?
Mm.
We were created to be, and now we just want to do. And you talked about that strict schedule and the discipline. How do you let people be and then you accept them as they're being what you don't want them to be?
Um, with practice, honestly. Like I said, I'm not the person that I used to be. So growing up, if someone did, I did not like people more than I like people, if that makes sense. And
Mm.
so I was very choosy on who I affiliated with. I was choosy on my friends. I was choosy on my company. It was around people that I just didn't like like their energy or what they were saying. I would tune out. And I think a lot of the credit of this goes to my husband and honestly the upbringing of my the upbringing of my in-laws where they don't keep shoulds attached to anyone, you know. And yeah, there are like regular expectations, but nothing that like, oh, if you don't do this, then I will be upset, or I'll view you a different way, or you will be belittled because you didn't show up the way I thought you would show up, right? It was none of that. And I think it took a lot of time for me because I come from a very different upbringing where there are expectations. And again, as being a house full of girls, there are a lot of expectations. And I think that I just kind of practice it. The latter part of it was tough because accepting people how they are, I'm kind of like, I don't like you. Just like, I don't. I mean, for me, it's like, I don't affiliate with people too much if they're just complaining and not doing anything about it, or not reflecting, or if they ask me for advice, not take away nothing from it. I'm like, okay, well, what was the point of that? I think I am a very practical person in that sense. And so just accepting people for who they are was like, I can't change you unless you want to change.
Mm.
What I can do is just be here for you and let you be whatever state you want to be in and be okay with it because I don't have any expectations attached to you.
Yeah. So having no expectations.
Hmm. Or low expectations, yeah.
That's not something that most of us can say out loud, right? Like I have no expectations or low expectations from you. Um, who do you expect from if you don't expect from people?
I think my close knit family, um, like obviously my parents, my siblings, my husband, my kids. But I don't, there's no like, honestly, we went through this thing with when we had our twins, like we're first time parents and we got twins. So we had this thing like, what is the worst case scenario? Right? You imagine that. And if you can mentally prepare yourself for that anything that comes less than it, you're like, oh, okay, it's not a big deal. So for me, I don't expect like someone to go A to Z for me for a certain particular thing. If it happens, it's great. If it doesn't happen, I'm like, oh, okay, well, no big deal. And I think that I have faced hurt when I was a lot younger. And so when you face hurt in a situation where you're helpless, you just
Mm.
learn. It's better to have low expectations or no expectations because then you're not disappointed.
Mm. So what you're telling us is expect less from others, so you're not less disappointed.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you pressure yourself to expect more from you because of the fact that you're expecting less from others?
People say I do, but that's something I'm working on. I think that I don't see it as a pressure or like putting pressure on myself. But I think in the last couple of years, I have recognized that feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, or feeling like life is throwing too much at you at one time is part of the reason of you putting pressure on yourself, and kind of loosening the reins and being like, it's okay. Like I know you always say give yourself grace, and I remind you to give yourself grace because we were taught to do that growing up, and that's something we have to learn.
And how, for those of you who are still tuned in, thank you so very much. Let's ask Tazeen, like, how do you build that muscle of grace when you're not taught it?
um I try to turn to those that have it, or certain situations have had it. I turn to those who, like, in my low points, were able to tell me it's okay or just hear me out. And I look to see, okay, how can I adopt that for myself? You know, um, I think that I learned to kind of pause life and see, like, what am I gaining from other people, or what can I like, I think of, like, okay, what would my husband do in this situation, right? Or
Mm.
like my mother-in-law is very graceful, and she's just calm in her nature. My father-in-law is very calm in their nature, and for me it's no so like foreign to me that I'm like, okay, just be calm in your nature, just be calm in your nature. And so I think in those instances I kind of take away from bits and pieces of people that around me that I see doing that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very big on, like, people living by example. And so if their examples they show me that I can benefit from, I steal it. Um, but again, they're not, majority of the people are not going to give you that.
Yeah, I think kind of goes back to that point that you talked about. You're very selective with the people that you like. Um, and I think that's just your nature. I think that's just how you evolved into this world. Because I remember when
Yeah.
we would go to parties and go places. So by all means, like Tazeen she was the loudest, the most obnoxious, the most. What are the right words I need to use here? Like
I think
she
obnoxious is right on.
right over the top, yeah, whatever. Like there were times where we are waking up for fasting at 4 in the morning, and her and I are hysterically laughing so much that we're falling off the chairs, okay, with the blankets rolling in them, and our dad is of course like on next level yelling and screaming like, "What is wrong with the both of you?" So she was that, and then when you see this person in the house like this, and then you'd go to a party, and then it was like she would sit there on the table of like 10 people, and this is her face.
Yeah.
This is it. If she likes somebody, she's like, "Ah," and then how do you do that? How do you manipulate your personality to be distinct?
Um, I think that like I think that I didn't like socializing growing up, and even to this day, like I like it in timed. I guess like I'm not someone that will socialize all the time. My husband's like, you can sit with anybody and talk, and I'm like, yeah, I can because I have those skills. But do I want to do that on a regular basis? No. And
Mm,
I think that like I felt like my comfort was at home, however the home was. And my parents did, like my mom especially, a lot of props goes to her where she made a comfortable home where I could just be who I wanted to be. Outside of the home, it was different, but because my personality was so like extra, I felt like, okay, going outside, that's not my comfort, right? Those people I
mm.
don't know. I don't even want to know you. Okay. I don't really care. So I would just have this like, like what's that face called? I don't want to call it bitch face,
Mm-hmm.
but
Not that one. Yeah.
that's that what it's called. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
She had a very,
I
she had a
just
very serious face, a very
yeah,
composed
I just
face.
disconnected. I just disconnected because I'm like,
Ah.
I don't know you, so I don't want to show you my personality of who I am because like you have to earn it, you know. It just can't.
Mm. Okay. Most of us don't allow others to earn a place or a seat at our table, the table of our lives. What are some nuggets that you can give to us where people can vet and say, oh, yeah, yeah, if this person shows this, okay, maybe I'll think about a chair. Okay, well, if person shows this, this, and this, maybe I'll pull the chair out. But if they do this, that seals the deal. You get a chair. Like, you get it. Put yourself on here.
Yeah.
How do people really gauge who should be in their life versus those who are really taking them down without them even knowing?
I think it comes down to self-worth. You gotta know your self-worth, and that requires a lot of reflection, requires knowing who you are, building your self-confidence. Honestly, I was just thinking on the drive to work today, like, how did I get this confidence? Because I've always had it. I think it was a bit more dangerous before than it is now. But I was like, I used to always be like, I'm overconfident, I'm compensating for being a middle child. But I think that like everyone is their own individual person. And if you just follow, you don't even know who you are anymore, right? And that you have to respect yourself enough to know there are certain things that I'm okay to like, compromise. And there's certain things that are like a definite no for me. And then you just stick to it because that's what makes you who you are. If you're just saying, oh well, with this person I'll be okay and that person I'll be okay, then you don't even know who you are, and others will take from you what you give to them, right? If I know my self-worth is like, okay, well, these certain things are non-negotiable in my house, like raising your voice or disrespecting or speaking someone loudly or just being, I guess belittling someone or things like that, are just a no-go. I will be very clear to like let people know that you're in my company now. So if you want to, you're welcome to be here, but there's certain things I don't allow. And I think that more people have to take time to do that, because if you're just a follower, there's gonna come a time where you're gonna keep changing who you're following, who you follow, and there's gonna come a time where you're gonna feel very lonely, because even if you're surrounded by people, you don't even know who you are. So then how do you go about living life on your terms?
So let's dive in a little bit and understand, your a challenge that your family is currently facing in your life.
My family's facing, like my kids and me.
Yeah, if you can share, yeah, if you can share a challenge, because I think, when I bring individuals on, we're really living intentional lives. People look at us like, oh my God, this person's got their stuff together. They just know who they are. They're like,
Mm.
they shift and they pivot and they reflect and they change. They're like, boom, boom, boom. But then I'm like, nah, not true. Like every day, you and I, just like everybody else, has challenges.
Yeah.
And, we've kind of picked up this theme of family. You are a family. I know you're a family. I grew up in the same family. What is a challenge that you would like to share with our audience that your family is currently facing? And, you guys are just learning the tools that you need to figure out how to best approach it.
I think for me personally is to be present with my kids. As a mom, a lot of you might be moms out there with little kids. You're always like, you have this to-do list going in your brain. And I was also raised by this discipline of to-do list in my brain. And so understanding that, no, this time with my child, I have to just be present and be with him, even if it's like, wasting time because I'm not being productive, is okay, because this is intentionally spending time with my kid, and this will make him happy, give him quality time. They will make me happy. And I think the other challenge as a family we're facing is how to navigate the emotions of each of our kids, because they're so different. Um, Again, being raised traditionally in a Pakistani household, it was very easy to get slapped in the face because that was normal. That's how you discipline. You're not listening to me. You're gonna get a top party. But I don't want to take that away, because I don't think that's a good reflection of the mom I want to be. And so there are times where I lose it. I really do. But again, I'm fighting nature and nurture all the time, because there's certain way I was raised, and there's certain things I have to change to be like, okay, that's not what I want to take out of it. So how can I help myself do that? And honestly, it takes practice. It does not happen. You will feel like there every night that I sleep, I'm like, was this a productive day today? Was I happy today? Did I spend quality time with every single one of my child? I'm doing this in my head every single day. And I realized that it is exhausting doing that. So I just have to be present in the time that I have with them, instead of measuring it with, 30 minutes spent here, an hour spent there. And I know, again, that's like I'm a very math brain, so numbers work. So I'm like, how much time did I really spend? How much time did I spend? Like, was it 30 minutes? Was it 15 minutes? So it's you're always juggling that. You're always thinking of that, and those are normal everyday struggles that a lot of you might be having at home yourselves.
Yeah, so presence is the number one indicator of fulfillment that you'll feel in life. And that fulfillment pours us into like this sense of feeling vibrant, feeling like you're alive, feeling the sense of like your desires are being met, and who you're meant to be is who you're showing up as. And it is true that most of us are struggling with this essence of being present. And you also talked about this essence of like, oh, productivity. What if you looked at productivity differently?
Yeah, I'm
How would
learning
you
to do
look at
that.
it? Okay.
I mean, growing up, it was even like not just growing up, but I think as a lot of my adult life, productivity means a checklist. Right? How much have you gone through your checklist? And everybody knows a to-do list will only end and then restart again every single day. So that was productivity. Like, what did I get done today in terms of like all the tasks I had to complete? Productivity now that I'm teaching myself to do, it's like, okay, when you lie down in bed, did you feel happy in moments throughout the day? Did you feel like you did things just because it felt good to you versus what you should do? And something simple like, okay, watching TV for a mom of like little kids who like always wants to be on top of things is that something I do every day. There are times when I wait till all the kids are in bed and we'll just kind of, relax at that time. And I was telling my husband the other day on Sunday afternoon, I turned on the TV and I sat watching like half an hour. And I was like, this is so different for me. And normally the productive mind of mine would be like, Tazeen, she uses half an hour to do laundry, your laundry pile waiting in your room. And then I was like, no, in this moment, I want to just relax and this will make me feel good. So I'm going to watch half an hour TV. And that's what I did because I know the laundry will end and then tomorrow there'll be another load of laundry. And so that's just like, it's a never ending process. So I think just like you said, understanding what fulfills you and then following that.
Yeah. I've also done a lot of my own work when it comes to productivity because as a high performance coach, we're not teaching clients to follow the checklist. It's literally the simple concept of what are the three most important things I got to get done today. And for me, one of those today was self-care.
Ah,
Can you imagine you talking to me? Like self-care. I was like, what does self-care mean? It means not a 3-minute shower, girl. That's what that means. Right? Like your kids are already in school. Why are you hustling? And
yeah,
so that for me was, oh, that's being productive. I'm like, yeah, because that shower is gonna show me that I'm taking care of this body that God has given me, the mind that He has, bestowed me with, which is brilliant, and the soul that just wants to unite and see me care for my own self. And I think there's something that you're right. Like most of us are looking at productivity as a checklist. But for me to even put myself on there, that's disruptive.
I'm sure that took you time.
Yeah, it
And
did.
I'm sure you're teaching yourself what does self care even mean? Like, what do I do?
Because you know how that is, right? For me, taking care of myself is not something that I naturally do.
Yeah,
For me, pouring into others is so much more important and valuable. But it's this essence of what Oprah Winfrey says is when your cup runneth over, and it's like just it's like an ocean of just,
yeah,
overflow, then I can pour an ocean into somebody else. Versus if my cup is like, three-fourths full, then there's still, one-fourth, math nerd, that is still, that's still empty.
yeah.
So I want to actually ask you, I know we're not concluding right now, but I do want to ask for the people who are like, oh, we really like this Muslim American Ambreen sister. We really want to find out more about her. How can people get in touch with you?
You don't.
I love it.
I mean, I just, I was, it's funny because even getting onto this meeting, it was like, where do you want to send this link to social media? I'm like, I know, like, I choose to live a very private life because I don't need other people's faces in my business. And so if you want to
Mm,
find me, you gotta find me in person.
love that. Okay, so right now we're talking about breaking the norms, doing things unconventional. Right there, I've never had a guest tell me, you don't find me. And if you're meant to be, you're meant to cross paths with the zine, you totally can. It just means you have to require you're required to do the work to kind of, in a way, be vetted
I mean,
to be
I'm
like,
on
yeah,
LinkedIn if you want to, Google me on there. That's a professional platform I use. And I'm on Facebook. But again, I have limited friends on Facebook. I'm not like my husband who has like 675 friends. I
wow.
probably have like six of those 678 that my husband has. But I really do feel like there's a difference between like if I meet people in person and then that word of mouth gets connects me to someone else that I feel like is of value to my life, that's great. But I will probably never go through social media and find someone like, oh, I want to find different ways of connecting to them because I will take from them what they can give me to serve me in my life. But that's probably as far as I'll go. So there are people I would definitely want to meet. And I'm sure there are people out there that who are like, who is this crazy Tazeen girl? But you'll have to do some work to get to me.
So let's wrap that up and ask about that concept that you talked about. It all goes back to self-worth. You gotta know and respect yourself enough to know that this is these are the people I want to surround myself with, the action that I want to do. Self-worth is one of the biggest things that's proven now, in research is coming up again and again, that we as humans don't have this essence of
Mhm.
understanding our own worth. And we had a brilliant coach who showed up here who actually gave me this platform to speak. And he talked about the self esteem. You know, the esteem is kind of the essence of who we are, and that's our worth, right? That's kind of like, for those of you who believe and don't believe, I really believe that we all have a soul inside of us as humans, and that's the worth. What are some what are some ways that you know you're worthy?
Oh, what are some ways that I know that I'm worthy? Um, I think that I might just revisit the different roles I have and feel like if it gives me fulfillment and if I feel like I have done a good job to take in that role. So for example, as a sister, I think I was thinking about this yesterday. Like, do I feel like I'm a good sister? Like, I have three sisters. I'm bringing to one of them. And we didn't grow up like complimenting. That was not a thing. Again, that's a cultural thing. That you don't really compliment because that makes you big headed and makes you arrogant if you want to be there. No one thought that complimenting might make someone feel good. So I started thinking like we don't go around saying, "Hey, you're a great sister, you're a great sister," but the things we say that we show appreciation to each other. And from what I've taken from my all my three sisters, it's like, okay, Tazeen, you're doing something right, so that you feel like you're serving your sisters good, and in that role is important to you. That elevates my self worth. As a husband, as a wife, as a daughter-in-law, as a sister-in-law, and I think that I want to reflect positivity with people. And I hope that I do that with those that I meet. Um, if I don't really like you, there's not gonna be any positivity. There's just not gonna be any activity. Just I try not to reflect negativity either, but just you won't see any of it. I mean, my sister say that like they can read my face and know how I feel, so you'll know. But I mean, again, most people that I meet that are close in my life and are of value to me will see that. And I hope that in my reflection, I've seen that they feel they can get some goodness, some positivity, something that makes them feel like they want to be with me, want to spend time with me, and that to me is a good reflection of self worth. I think that growing up you're like, oh, did you get this degree and that degree, did you get a job, and this and that has become like the most people's self-worth. They do this checklist but with like professionally. And I made this conscious effort in my intro not to have my profession be the first thing I say, because as soon as you meet somebody, you're like, oh, so what do you do? And you're like, oh, I'm a math professor. Whereas like I do a million other things, but the focus is so much on the profession, right? Which I think is great, but again, there has to be a balance. You have to be something more than your profession, you know. And you can't, and if you have a profession, then yeah, you should pursue it if you want to. But one entity can't define who you are. And so in every aspect of that, you have to kind of be like, if you feel content in serving that purpose, serving that role, then that will elevate your self-worth. And if it doesn't, then you do have to do some work to get there if you want to. You know, like if my relationship with my younger sister was not great growing up, it was not. But she was someone of value to me because she's my younger sister. So we worked really hard to build our relationship to where it is now, where she can turn to me and I will go to her, and we have a very good open relationship. And that required a lot of work, which I think a lot of people hesitate to do.
Okay. Why do you, so it seems like people have to earn your presence. Okay. I mean, that's a great way of putting it. People have to earn your presence. How do you know that somebody is worthy of that presence, of that time, of that commodity, which is so limited?
So if I'm going to a party, right, and I'm like meeting people, I'll be nice to you guys, I promise. Okay. If I don't like you, I probably won't see you again, but I'll be nice to you. So it's not like I'm choosing every company of mine. But if I'm choosing my company, I'm looking to see if that person is living by example. And if they're just talk, but they're not doing anything about it, I'm like slowly distancing myself from them. And I've actually thought about that because there are many friends growing up that were in our friend circle, but I probably have one or two that have stuck around with and become friends with them, you know, on a long-term basis. And
Mm.
there are still friends from high school that get together and whatever, but when I'm in their company, if I feel like it's just like, oh, she did this, she did that, or just complaining, or you're, you know, you're sorry about certain things in your life, but you're not doing anything to change it. You're not doing anything to like get actual advice and use it. And if you're not living by example, then to me, like, I don't find that company valuable.
Okay. Well, that is, I think, brilliant. Now, what we're going to do is called an intentional wrap up,
Oh
where
man.
this is a rapid fire. So these are one answer, one sentence answer. These are questions that I ask you, which I would like for you to answer in one sentence or one word, preferably. And I'm just going to fire them at you. Okay. Ready?
All right, here you go.
All right. What do you want to leave behind to the world?
Positivity.
How will you know you've led an intentional life?
If I see a change.
If you could create one law that everybody had to follow,
No,
what
this.
would that law be?
Um, um. Oh man. I don't know how to say it in one word, but
One
um,
sentence.
put your money where your mouth is.
Oh, okay. All right. There you
I
go.
don't mean like money in the way, but I just mean like don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. You know.
Yeah. The whole thing of living as an example, right?
Yeah.
Role modeling is important to you. What is the key to a healthy relationships?
Um, Open communication.
What is one change you want to see in the world?
More presence.
More presence. All right. I love, love, love that. All right. For those of you who have tuned in thus far, I hope you found the zine as brilliant as I did. And as always, this show can be heard on Spanglish World Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca. Follow all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it. As we close, my prayer to you is that this show embarks us on our journey of transformative path where we are in gratitude and we accept ourselves in the unfolding of our lives. And we commit to values and dreams which will allow us to tap into our own greatness. As I have tawakkul, which is faith, the upcoming transformed version of us will allow us to be the best and lead with intentions. Remember, there's only one of you, one life designed by excellence. More importantly, remember the SpanglishWorld.ca is something that you want to live into as best as you can. See you next week. Bye.